Shalom, this is Rebecca Sipley from Ministry of Shofar, and today we're going to talk about a topic that I entitled Pesach, the God pattern of redemption and restoration revealed. In a previous video, we talked about how the phrase God works in mysterious ways and how that is simply not true. We talked about how that phrase implies that God acts randomly and cannot be understood, so we have to hope for the best. I suggested that instead we embrace the phrase, God works in patterns and cycles that can be discovered and understood. We talked about God patterns, so I want to review that because it's really important that we understand that there are God patterns throughout Scripture. And once we start to discover the pattern, we're going to see it repeat, and we're going to be able to understand God more fully. God is the original communicator. The whole Bible is about He communicating about Himself. And God is the one that initiated that communication with mankind. He has revealed and continues to reveal Himself, His character, His ways, His plans, His original intent. We talked about original intent and why that is an important thing to understand and think about when we look at Scripture. God's plans, patterns, and cycles are always based on His original intent. He doesn't have what we would call plan B. God patterns repeat as God interacts with mankind in time and space, since His interactions is always based on His original intent. So we talked about, based on His original intent, when God intersects and interacts with mankind, whether it's in the centuries or in the millennia, He is always interacting based on His original intent. His original intent was to restore mankind to Eden, to the place of intimate relationship with Him, the place of being a member of His family, the place of sharing in the rule that He shares with His family in the spiritual world and in the human world. The place of shalom, where there's nothing missing, nothing broken. The place of complete wholeness and healing for all mankind and all of creation. The place where His good rule extends throughout the whole earth. That is Eden. That is where He's restoring us back to. So in this session, we're going to explore how the God pattern of redemption and deliverance was revealed in Passover, or Pesach in Hebrew. Now, one thing to remember, to see God's patterns, we have to read the book, the Bible, the Scriptures. But one important piece we need to understand is we need to read the whole book. We need to read it from cover to cover. We must read Old Testament and New Testament. The Bible is one book, given by the one God, Yahweh, to reveal Himself to all mankind. Next, we must read the story of the events of Passover and discover God's plan for deliverance and redemption. So if we start, I'd say read Exodus 1 to 15. Read the story again. Discover again the God pattern of redemption and deliverance. Start in Exodus 1 and read the thrilling story of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who is also the God and Father of our Messiah, Yeshua. In the fullness of time, He came to His people and came to Moses to fulfill His promise to Abraham. That promise to Abraham was 400 years prior, and He said in Genesis 15:12, when the sun went down, Abram fell asleep, and great terror overwhelmed him. Then the Lord said to Abram, know for certain that your descendants will be as strangers in a foreign country. They will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. But I will execute judgment on the nation that they will serve, and afterwards they will come out with many possessions. So God not only, again, remember, original intent, every century. So he starts with Abraham. Then again, he repeats it to his son Jacob. Jacob, who's renamed Israel, he reminds him of his promise. And this scripture comes after he discovers that his son Joseph is alive and governor in Egypt. It says in Genesis 46, starting at verse 1, "So Israel journeyed with all he had, and he came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in visions in the night and said, 'Jacob, Jacob.' And he said, 'Here I am.' Then he said, 'I am the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. I myself will bring you down. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I myself will bring you up.'" So it begins through Abraham, to his family, to Jacob. And then finally we go to, it starts to unfold in the book of Exodus with Moses. So we've talked about, we start in Exodus 1, and then we keep reading and we discover the thrilling events of the 9 plagues where God, the God of Israel, addresses the gods of Egypt and demonstrates that he is the God of heaven and the God of earth. And then we follow the story. We rediscover again Exodus 11, where God reveals through Moses about the 10th and final plague of judgment that would befall the Egyptians and their false gods. At midnight, he tells them that he will come through the land of Egypt, and the firstborn of every family and all cattle would die. With this final plague, God would dramatically set his people free from the bondage and slavery of Egypt. And the story continues to unfold. Read and discover afresh Exodus 12. In Exodus 12, God gives detailed instructions on how to prepare for the final plague so that they would not be struck down with the Egyptians. He gives them instructions to select a 1-year-old lamb or goat without any flaw or blemish for each family. That animal was to be selected on the 10th of the Hebrew day of Nisan and stay with the family until the 14th day of Nisan to make sure that the animal was fit. On the evening of the 14th of Nisan, as the sun was setting, the people gathered together and the lambs were slain. Then each family took some of the blood of the lamb and individually applied it to the doorposts of their house, to their own home, to demonstrate their faith and their loyalty to Yahweh, the God of Israel. The innocent lamb became their substitute, making it possible for the Lord's judgment to pass over them. You see the God pattern starting to be revealed? So it continues. Midnight comes. The firstborn die. Pharaoh releases the people of Israel that very night, and God brought them out of Egypt that night with great deliverance. Yahweh had accomplished all that he had promised Abraham, Jacob, and Moses. In Exodus 6, he explains this to Moses, and he says, this is before all the events come to fruition, he says, "I am Yahweh, and I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as the God of Shaddai. And by my name Yahweh I was not known to them. And I not only established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings in which they dwelt as aliens, but I myself heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are making to work, and I remembered my covenant. Then I said to the Israelites, I am Yahweh. I will bring you out from under the forced labor of Egypt, and I will deliver you from their slavery, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and great punishments. And I will take you as my people, and I will be your God, and you will know that I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out from under the forced labor of Egypt. And I will give you the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and I will give it to you as a possession. I am Yahweh. The God of covenant comes to his people and promises redemption. And over the centuries, as time unfolds, he brings in the fullness of time that redemption and restoration and deliverance. And as we'll talk about on another video, this God pattern continued throughout the centuries until the time when Jesus, Yeshua, came on the scene. And he was the deliverer, and God completes the deliverance of all mankind through Yeshua. So God is a God of covenant, and God is a God of patterns. So Yahweh, the God who spoke, I myself, and he said, I will, he did. In this season of redemption and deliverance, Yahweh, the God who is the same yesterday, today, and forever, speaks to you and me right now, and he says, I will bring you out. I will deliver you from slavery. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God, and you will know that I am Yahweh. He himself, I will. In this season, as covenant people, let's embrace the I will of Yahweh. Shalom.